Hi, this is the eighth episode of the series Decolonizing the Mind. This episode deals with the role of Russia. Earlier, I had a presentation uh, on the Russian acting as a nuclear shield for a possible attack against Iran. But now I'll discuss the Russian view of Palestine itself and how to move forward with it. And I'll deal with four aspects: Russia and the fight against terrorism, Russia and the multipolar world, the two state solution from a Russian perspective, and the relationship between Russia and Hamas. Now, if you want to understand the Russian position towards terrorism, you have to understand a bit of the main outline of Russian history. In 1917, a revolution took place in the midst of World War One. In fact, at the end of World War One, in the Soviet Union, was later the Soviet Union, and that was a revolution that was not only in Russia. The Soviet Union that came out of the revolution was a federal union consisting of 15 Soviet republics: Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Estonia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Latvia, Lithuania, Moldavia, Russia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, Uzbekistan. So in the Russian view of how to look at Islam, the Soviet Union consisted of republics, of which some were mainly Muslims. And when radical Islam arose in the last quarter of the 20th century, the Russians regarded that as a reactionary force, the Soviets. In the Iran-Iraq war of 1980, they joined the West against Iran. And in Afghanistan, there was a communist government which was under attack of Islamic forces, and the Russians aided those communists. They were leading the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan, and went into Afghanistan from 1979 to 1989, a 10-year war which they were defeated, and in which the USA supported the Taliban and those forces who were fighting Russia. And later on, the Taliban turns against the US. Now, that war was one of the factors, the defeat of the Soviet army was one of the factors that lead to the dissolution of Soviet Union. Obviously, there were many other factors, internal factors, and on December the 16th, the Soviet Union formally ceased to exist in 1991. Now, if you look at the Russia that came out of that process, the Russian state, their view and their orientation was towards the West, peace and economic cooperations with the West. The Nord Stream pipeline, is the ultimate expression of it, providing Europe with gas and oil, and they wanted to join NATO. But what you see is the arrogance of the empire. The US response to the demise of the Soviet Union was, okay, the Soviet Union was breaking up, let's break up the Russian state. Let's see that also the Russian state get dissolved into different parts, and then we could rule forever, because our main nuclear competitor is Russia. And how do we break the Russian state? We refuse their entry into NATO. We expand NATO with the former Soviet republics. And Ukraine was one of the main forces and the stepping stone for destroying nuclear Russia. And once you have destroyed Russia, then you could rule the world. So that was the American policy. The counter response of Russia was this. Russia uh, had a strong leader, Putin, and his main priority was getting the Russian economy back on track because it was after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, it totally broke down, and provide security for its population. And internationally, he held a speech, the Munich speech in Munich 2007, a very important speech, where he says the unipolar world was not only unacceptable, but it is generally unattainable in today's world. So he is saying a multipolar world order is a solution to many international problems. So going for a multipolar world means effectively denying this idea that US could rule the world forever in a unipolar world. So Russia, China, other centers of power start building an economic and political order. The BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation System, BRICS is about economy, and Shanghai Cooperation Organization is about security, new relations with Africa, Latin America, and Western Asia, and a new view of knowledge production, of how you look at the world, not through class struggle, but through the concept of civilization. And you will get it time and again in speeches of Putin and his main and the main leaders in Russia. They see the struggle in the world as a struggle between civilizations, and they define their Russian civilization as a unique civilization, which is a combination of Europe and Asian characteristics. And don't forget, 50% of Russia consists of Muslims now, today. And a dialogue of civilization, not class struggle, is the way to deal with these things. And if you look now at how the old policy of Russia towards Palestine was, they had warm relations with Israel. And they had also formal relations with the PLO. Their relations with Israel is also not only because of the Holocaust. Remember that the Russians liberated, the Jews from those who were still alive in the concentration camp in Auschwitz. It were the Russians who liberated them, and so the Russian has this feeling with the Holocaust, and the sympathy for Israel was there. They have, because of their political outlook, also warm relations with the PLO, which is a secular organization. They were wary and suspectful of political Islam. And once the PLO went into the two-state solution, they supported the two-state solution. And that is the formal policies. Now, things have changed. The Russians have seen that in a new world civilization and a new world order, it's not just about China and Russia. You will get new centers of power in Abya, Latin America, Brazil, Venezuela, but important is Iran in Western Asia. Iran is a major regional power and even with international dimensions. So they cultivated, developed relations with Iran. They supported Syria against the coalition that was fighting Bashar al-Assad in Syria, in the Syrian civil war, the coalition of USA, Israeli, and ISIS. USA and the Western press presents ISIS as a fool, as an enemy of USA, but effectively, and the evidence is there, the US worked together with the Israelis and ISIS to topple down Bashar al-Assad. And Russia argued if ISIS would take over, they would use Syria, where they have a military harbor base there. They would use Syria as a stepping stone to gain influence in Islamic parts of Russia. So for them, it was important to defeat ISIS. And now, the Russians in a multipolar world mobilizing against USA, and in Western Asia it'd be mobilizing against Israel. So Israel, moreover, supports Ukraine with weapons. So the Russians have another reason to be wary of Israel. And now the most important thing is, the Russians have seen that the major power in Palestine is not a PLO but Hamas. And here is an interesting quote by a senior Hamas official recently, November 2, Ali Baraka. And he said in an interview, today, all of America's enemies, or all those shown enmity by the US, are growing closer. Today, mind you, Russia contacts us on a daily basis. The Chinese sent envoys to Doha in Qatar, where Hamas has its political headquarters. The Chinese sent envoys to Doha, and China and Russia met with the leaders of Hamas. A Hamas delegation traveled to Moscow, and soon a delegation will travel to Beijing. All of America's enemies in the region are consulting and getting closer, and the day may come when they join the war together and turn America into a thing of the past. It's a very important quote. What this Hamas official is saying is, hey, you don't see this in the media, but we're talking to all the enemies of the United States. And what are we talking about? How this war might turn into a greater war in which all the forces against the US are cooperating in bringing down American empire. This is what this quote is saying. And you don't see that in the Western media, that this is going on. You could sense it. And the demand of Israel and US and the West that Russia condemns Hamas, in practice, they are working now with Hamas. And that's a very important sign. So China is the next biggest partner of Russia. And we will discuss China's role in Palestine. You know, you have to understand the rise of China and the concept of multipolar world and how China operates in Western Asia in general and in Palestine in particular. Now, in my book, I have discussed the Russia extensively, the experience of the Soviet Union in the chapter on economics, where I go into how economic development in the Soviet Union and the planned economy became a disaster. I discuss how the Russians look at the concept of civilization, and I discuss also how possible conflicts between Russia and the US might develop. And as always, you can download the PowerPoint from sandohira.com. And if you want to support the DTM channel, subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, family, and colleagues, and encourage them to subscribe. Get involved in discussion group where you discuss the videos and make a donation if you can. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you tomorrow.